Good.
Ali. Ring, how are you?
I'm cute.
Hello, Karin.
Hi, David. Are you the first to present today?
Yes. Yes. Flying a few hours.
Hey, that's
Recording in progress.
Evan, so you're muted.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry about that. I was just asking you if all the students from your team are already on this call.
2 of them are here. I think the other ones are just joining, but I think they're going to be a bit late.
Okay, then maybe we can wait a couple more minutes, and if they don't start, if they're not here by 7:05, then we can just go ahead. Are you going to be doing the full presentation yourself, or are you guys going to be alternating?
Myself, and then questions, everyone.
Okay, awesome.
Ale, how many of the cohort 2 students are we expecting? Are are they all going to be here? Or?
I think most of them, maybe 20 or 15, but I think they will be joining the session maybe in a few minutes. But we have the two teams here. Yeah.
Okay, so well, okay, it's 7:06. So maybe I'll start first and then let the other students join. So I want to first of all congratulate you guys to coming, to this phase of your project and your program. This is your final presentation. I know last term, both of your teams have already presented to Joseph. But today we will take it as a final presentation and give you final comments and reflections, sort of afresh, sort of without what we knew from your last presentation. Okay, so just so you know that. So I'd like to introduce our two MIT postdoc and PhD students today that will be commenting and questioning on your projects. So the first person is here, Bensu Menaf. She's a graduate student, a PhD student, and fellow at the MIT Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, and a research assistant at the MIT Concrete Sustainability Hub. Her research is based on hurricane resilience with a focus on understanding community characteristics that get to better inform that go into better informed building assessments. Bensu earned her bachelor's in civil engineering from Boğaziçi University in Istanbul, Turkey. And while studying there, she completed internships at design and construction firms and assistantship at the Boğaziçi University and the Kandili Observatory and Earthquake Research Institute. And our second person here is Silun. Silun is a postdoctoral fellow at the Institute of Data Systems and Society here at MIT. And he holds a PhD degree in applied mathematics specialized in optimization and systems theory. His research interests include nonlinear control network systems, rigid body attitude control, and modeling large-scale systems. Okay, so without further ado, I think the first group, LA, isn't it Volar's project? So you will have around 20 minutes to present, and then Bensu will start commenting, and Silun will also join in and give you reflections, questions, and all that for 25 minutes, and then we'll do the next group. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, muted. Okay, my name is David Hernandez. I'm part of the Volar group. I'm here to talk to you about our integration challenge with the NGO Volar, where we did an automation A/B testing of SMS. So let me. I couldn't jump. Who we are? We're 16 holders of the master in data and statistics from MIT. We work in different tech companies and trying to do research, some of us, and we were deeply passionate about this project and trying to improve it. To give you a bit of context about the NGO, in Peru, there are more than 143K families that have children under 5 years old and live below the poverty line. Volar is an NGO that aims to help these families understand how to raise their children using the 5 pillars of UNICEF of child development. Currently, the Volar pilot reaches only 600 families in the Puno region. So we wanted to help Volar automate and personalize this SMS to reach more families with more effective content. To do that, those are the 5 pillars I was talking about of UNICEF: secure attachment, effective verbal communication, motor skills, emotion regulation, and symbolic function. To reach the 143K families, we had to map the current process and propose a new process. in the process that was before us, there was a manual prep of SMS, taking 1 day of the week for a whole day for a week for 600 families. In our proposed process, there were only 10 minutes for 600 families. In the current process, there was sent via an SMS vendor called Mama, which asked the files to be sent in a certain way. We changed vendors to Broadcaster, which had an API that helped us improve and automate this process, and it was a current supplier of other projects of this NGO. In the current process, there was a static SMS content. We propose to have a continuous improvement content and with access to feedback. And in the current process, the SMS, they did not have their impact measure, but we were going to have that impact measure and understand which SMS were better than others. And for the previous state of the data, there was no automated database. The data was distributed in multiple Excel files without any integrity mechanisms between each other. And there was not any automated mechanism for preparing this SMS. And the provider asked for the SMS to be sent in a format manually. So what did we propose? We proposed to send automated SMS, grouping the families by kids per family, by content per age group, and with that, having a weekly SMS list. This will be in a continuous improvement loop of SMS content through A/B testing. In this loop, we will send advice SMS, we will receive feedback on that advice content, then we will evaluate and rank those SMS, understand which one were better, adapt the SMS with lower impact, and then create new advice SMS. And this way, be improving multiple times. So why did we use SMS? Multiple medical interventions and multiple papers show us that SMS were effective in creating and generating behaviors. We also found that personalized messages to each recipient also generate a bigger impact, and this SMS will allow us to capture the messages with higher impact. And one of the reasons that we also use this was because this SMS had a really small amount of cost. It only costs $20 for each family per month. So the project was designed in 3 stages: the automation, the design co-creation, and the implementation. For the automation, our objectives were to create a database of SMS and families, to integrate them with the SMS vendor API. And for this, we took 4 weeks to create these automated databases, 4 weeks for the API integration, and the results were a zero-cost solution with savings of 98% of the time over the current process. To do that, we developed a Jupyter notebook with different functions, different learnings that we apply from the program here, and we had like for each function what we expected to get, and really understandable so that ONG could also use it in the future. For the second part was the design co-creation. In this part, our objective was to create alternate SMS by subject and ages, and to create a treatment and control plan for each one of these SMS. To do that, we had a 4-hour co-creation session with experts and 4 sessions of 2 hours for refining with further experts of the ONG. The results were high impact SMS with personalized messages according to the target. For this, we use Miro and we use human-centered design and design thinking. For me and for the group, it was a really cool experience to work like this. None of us were used to having this type of design thinking in brainstorming that could happen in an environment like of co-creation. And finally, for the implementation, our objective was to have an A/B automated testing to both send and receive the feedback and to do feedback processing. The duration was 2 weeks of testing and 1 week of feedback processing, and the results were automated sending and reception of this SMS. To test this, we did a first pilot. In our first pilot, we decided to cohort very granular. We cohorted a full 1,200 families by geographic distribution, by number of children, by gender, and then we calculated the sample size that we needed for each of these families and how much participation of each of these families we will need. Then we sent the SMS and waited for the results. And the results were disappointing to say the least. We only got a 1% response rate on this first pilot. We found out that this pilot was not used to answering SMS, that there was a fear of responding this SMS because despite this being a toll-free number, the operator in the cell phone did appear like, you're going to receive a charge for this SMS. Are you sure that you want to do this? And people did not answer this. So we realized that we needed a different feedback channel and that we did a too granular sample size because we expected to have 100 participation in some of these groups, and that was not going to happen. So for our second pilot, we changed strategy. We did a sample size smaller, 200 families, no granularity, only the age groups of each of the families. We try to distribute by that because we in this case we are going to call each of the families to get their feedback to understand how this works before moving on to a more automated process. And to understand what type of SMS we send, these are on the left we have the control treatment. In the left we have the control and the right the treatment. And in the left, the treatment were SMS which gave advice in a softer manner. They were all, you should do this when your child is sick. You should do this to help your child learn. Like the doctors recommend this. It always was a softer approach. In the alternate SMS, in the treatment, what we tried to do was a harsher approach, where we told them, you must do this. Like, you have to do this with your child. You have to hold him like this. You have to teach them this way. What we wanted to do was to understand if there was going to be a big difference. And for our results, we found out that most families which answered the phone and answered the questions were families that had more than one children in the program. And at first, we only found positive variance for the control group in all measures. We measure how much you sense your knowledge as a parent had improved, how willing you were to recommend the program, how was the impact of the program in your child rearing, if this was responsive to your needs as a parent, if you were satisfied with the content, and if this was useful for childhood development. And at first, we only found positive variance for the control group, and we were like, okay, maybe our harsher approach is not good. It's not like people want to be treated. But then we divided and went a bit deeper. We tried to do a more of a deep dive, and we divided the groups by how many of these advices they implemented in their life. So we divided from 5 advice, 2 for 4, only 1. No, I did not do any of your advice. And what we found was that also in the control group they practice more of the advices. So okay, control group better in every way. But and this was the insight that we were most proud of, or we liked more. We found out that for people who actually put into practice this treatment, these advices, the people who put 5 or more times, or 2 or 4 times, they had a higher remember rate in the treatment group, and they were more willing to recommend the program. We also found that they also felt that the program had improved their child rearing in this group, in only the group that had applied advice. And we also, that was my final slide, sorry. And we found these things that led us to believe that this harsher approach has a higher remembering rate. It's not for everyone, but when you actually put into advice this, like you put into advice and you remember it very well. For our final learnings, the census needed to be current before calling. We found out that some of our SMS were going to year. The census that Volar had at the moment had changed in the between the time that we started the planification for the program and the time that we did the actual pilots. So we had to work with that because it's also improve our spend per survey. That the treatment have worse results in each group, except for recommendation score improvement in children raising in these groups that implemented these advices. But in general, the treatment had worse implementation of advices rate. So the groups that did not implement any advice were higher in the also in the treatment group. For our retrospective, what we could have done better in the project, we should have involved more the NGO team in the solution design and development. We've had these meetings where we brainstorm and try to work around this methodology, but we had some scheduling changes, and then we had like these personal changes inside the NGO that help us, that disorder that sent us to a bit of a tailwind, and we had issues in the project to get it on track. We should also have additional brainstorming sessions for the SMS feedback. When we did that, when we started doing the first pilot, we were sure that people were going to respond to SMS, and we did not keep track of what was happening. We found in the second week that it was failing, and we tried to do something to like improve the response rate, but it did not work. So probably if we had talked to the people before, to the persons, to the families that were going to receive this SMS, it would have worked better. Or probably we should have their input and understand that no, they don't like to write on the fonts. They are not used to that. They are not going to do it. So that was a fail for us. We should also have built a solution workflow with the NGO to understand more our constraints, what we were missing and what we were doing correctly. There were some parts where we wanted to have a development done in the week, and then we remembered, oh, we're signing the micromaster. We have a partial right now, so we have to move this 1 week because we have to study. And this balancing of like work life and also our work, because we were also working in like full-time jobs, we should have done a better job in communicating that to the NGO, and also keeping track on that better alignment on the solution initial testing scope and the dates, because we expected to have this super fast, and then in that personal change we waited like 2 weeks between movement of personnel, and then we expanded the process that was supposed to finish fast in more time. I think that's all for me. I don't know if you have any questions or you want me to go back to one of the slides.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And I really loved your slides. Like the visuals were amazing, and I like that you kept the information on the slides very concise. It's clear that you've also practiced the presentation and that you guys have, oh, well, I don't, I'm sorry, I'm just like joining from the iPad, so I don't know if I was just holding the camera awkwardly, but going back to it, it's clear that you guys have spent a lot of time and effort on this presentation. I just want to start with that. And then I had a bunch of questions, but you did address most of them while we were in the presentation. Like in the beginning, it wasn't clear to me if the families actually knew that they were being a part of this pilot study, but you also mentioned that, like, just to be clear, the 600 families that you guys were SMSing were all the people that were signed up in this Volar program?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
they were signed up on the Volar program, but we did not, like before it was only SMS, we did not ask for answers from them, and we did not reach out to them to tell them this has changed. So it was a mistake by us.
Yeah, like if I do agree with your sentiment that if you guys were maybe more transparent about we're going to be doing this thing to better our services for you families, then maybe they would have been more willing to respond. But apart from that, so while you guys were updating the SMSs that are in this database, was it getting updated for all the families, or was there a control and a test group?
There was a control and a test group, and what we have was SMS by like subject. So we had like emotional support and then for each age group, like the SMS of the week. And we tried to do a control and test variation of that, trying to do the softer and harsher approach to see which worked better.
And throughout the weeks, the families were getting random messages from all these topics, or was there like a theme in a week or a month?
There was a theme in a week, and it had a variation. If you had more than one child, you received like Monday first child, Wednesday second child, and so.
Yeah, because I'd also be curious if like you guys had a recurring theme throughout the month, maybe that would have also been easier for them to just like focus on it, because there's like, I think it was everything from I have to check my notes again, but like there was stuff about nutrition, but also things about, let me see, what were they? Like the 5 pillars.
Yeah. Symbolic, something, and so on. Yeah.
So getting like back, like if you're getting a bunch of different messages back to back, it might be like easier to focus on implementing recommendations if you're getting like recommendations within the same topic. So that might be something that you guys might want to control for next time, of like what was the order of the topics that people were responding to feedback about. And it might help like giving them recommendations about a specific thing and seeing if they implement that, and after they implement that, maybe moving on to the next. And these SMSs, are they I know that you gave us examples, and I was gonna ask you for examples, and I love that you gave examples of the interview questions too, but with the SMSs,
these are
I'm sorry, but yeah.
I can read the first one or the second one to you. It's easier.
Yeah.
The alimentation is very important when your child is ill. These recipes have helped a lot of parents. This was like, hi, name your child name, and the second one was, if your child is ill with this and this, you must watch his alimentation. Look at these recipes. Look into these recipes. So it was like this harsher, softer approach.
Okay, got it. And okay, so the main differentiator that you guys were looking at these questions was the harshness of the tone.
Yeah, of the tone. Like if you had a mandate, was better than an advice in improving implementation of this.
Also, can you talk to us a bit more about how you were measuring the performance? Was it just the percent of people who responded yes to the questions that you guys were asking in the interviews?
No, we did linear scales for each of the questions, so they responded 1 to 5 if they feel a lot of good or they were bad. And with that, we average between groups and controlling for different sizes and trying to see if there was like a big jump between one group and the other.
Yeah. So you were looking at the average score for each of these questions that you guys were asking them, right?
Yes.
I'd also be curious if like maybe you'd want to consider doing something like a chi-square testing where you're looking at, rather than averaging their points out, just looking at the number of people that responded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And seeing if that number of people falling in each category has significantly changed over time, rather than averaging it out. Because like when you're averaging out, another risk that you guys might have noticed is that like maybe a lot of people are responding 3 now, but the people who are responding 5 are, they lowered their score, and the people who are like it might be
Yeah.
confounding some of the results that you're getting.
Yes. For these results, I think I was not that clear, but we only made a survey at the end of the SMS because we had this company that called each of the groups. So we did not have to control for like the time when you receive the survey. We would have loved to see if, like week to week it jump or down up and down because it will have help us improve more granularly the which SMS was good, which was bad, but constraints and budget.
Yeah, that's okay. Doing something like chi-square testing, you could also look at the statistical significance between people who've responded 3 and above, or 3 and or 2 or 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see if I had any other questions. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about the design of the recommendations was how, I think since the focus of this NGO seems to be like being able to reach lower income families, it does seem like they would be sensitive about these recommendations being ones that people can implement regardless of their socioeconomic status. But I'm wondering if like if any of them were found not helpful because maybe people thought that they were unattainable.
Like I said, we could not measure for each SMS, so we were not sure if one of these. Yes, I'm sure that if the recipes were like things that you couldn't get in the city that they were, they would not have been well received. So it's good. It's a good comment. We should also regionalize or try to make it more local.
Yeah, but overall, it was a very interesting topic to hear about. And if anybody else has questions, maybe we can move on to answering those. Thank you so much for answering mine.
Thanks to you.
Okay, yeah, it's very exciting project, and it seems you have done a lot to really automate the whole procedure they already have, but you improve it a lot. And I also appreciate your presentation. It's quite, quite clear and concise way. I just have some curiosity about the whole procedure. Right? I mean, the first one that you mentioned that actually you try to personalize the SMS that you send to each family. So can you say a little bit more how do you do this personalization, and what the priority when you do that procedure?
Yeah, so when we personalize by based on age. So you will not receive like just born baby advice when your child is older than 4 or 2. So we had like the age groups. We also had like personalized advice when you by the gender of your child. So if you're a child or a girl, boy or a girl, We personalize the SMS were with the name of the person, were with the name of the child, so they will know which child we refer to. That was the extent of our personalization in the the controls and groups, and then we try to improve this harsher approach in the final SMS.
Okay, I see. So maybe in the future, if you want to improve it, maybe you can add the feedback procedure in your personalization, right? I mean, if some family they have some positive feedback on some advice, then maybe you can you can forward more message in the next round, and right, and that will make the advices and SMS really customized, right? Yeah, that could be one thing you could do in the future. And another thing is that I noticed that you mentioned that actually there are only a very little proportion of people really response your SMS.
Yes.
So do you have any idea how to improve this response rate?
So the SMS were a COVID measure because what we planned in the first pilot, and like to go back to what Volar also does, it's not only SMS, it also has like these workshops and things like that. But that all closed due to COVID. So they were only working via SMS. So what we were supposed to do was send the SMS, and in these workshops, like receive their feedback, because the families when there, and they could ask them each SMS what happened. And we also expected like to having this tool-free number to have families just answering like 1 to 5. That was the whole answer that they needed to make. But unfortunately, we did not have this like person on the field that could tell them you're not going to be charged. We sent them SMS telling them that they were not going to be charged. But if your operator tells you you might be charged, you don't trust the old SMS. So yeah, that was one of the things that we tried to do, and to improve that, I think it's a lot of community outreach. I think it's a lot of about where the families are. This is one of the poorest regions of Peru, and the program hopes to expand. And this is also why we use SMS and we don't use like WhatsApp, which we could also use the same SMS, because in this region internet access is 5% or 10%. So
Yeah,
we had like a difficult audience which is not used to answering a lot in their phones.
yeah,
I
makes
think
sense. Yeah,
it will work
so
on the lower.
yeah, great. Yeah, I guess in general in this kind of survey procedure, it's always the problem that you think you will have a lot of participants, but in the end only a few of them respond, right? I guess in a lot of study, maybe they just motivate people by, maybe giving them some gift or even some money, right? Because I guess, because if I understand right, so what you are doing is still on the stage that you want to develop a better platform, a better algorithm for the future usage, right? It's still a study procedure. So maybe you can consider if you can get more resources to some kinds of give gift to the participants to improve the response rate. So that could be, but it depends on if you have the resources, right?
Yeah,
that's a big issue. Yeah,
we were looking into doing a raffle in the first pilot, but we did not have the budget at the moment. And in the second pilot, we had a bit more.
Yeah, and maybe another method is that, as we just talked about, if we can really personalize each message, maybe that will increase the response rate, right? I mean, if I'm the parent, if I just receive some message, it seems like it's just the template for all the parents, then I will maybe not will to respond it at least every time, right? But if you can personalize, I mean, you can some can answer, or you also give feedback about what they response to you in the last term. In that sense, you will have the communication, right, in the sequence. So I guess maybe that will increase some kind of response rate. But of course, that will really need more work to how to design this kind of real feedback or dynamic algorithm or procedure to design the whole SMS algorithm. That will maybe make it more complicated, but I guess that will for sure to have more
improve.
Improve. Okay, so
Cool.
besides that, I think the whole project amazing. Yeah, thank you for your presentation and all and the work for all your colleagues, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan and Bensu, and thank you, David, for your presentation. So, okay, so I think let's go on to the next group.
Also, have a safe flight.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have the second team. Joel, please go ahead.
Share the presentation. Yeah, please let me know if you can see and if you can hear me. Okay. Yeah. We start. Yeah, this project that we work with Enseña Peru, this NGO. And first we try to explain and try to that you understand what is this background about education here in Peru. So we start. What is the situation of education in Peru? We have that approximately 3.3 millions of people don't have start or complete their basic education. So this is like 10% of the population here in Peru. So we have a lot of people that really don't the slide say start or complete their education. So we have this problem. Also, for example, we see the school backwardness here in Peru is really higher in rural areas, approximately 24%. And only 13th of fourth grade students understand what they read. So we have a lot of children that they don't really have this quality of education that they need. So for these all problems that you can see have or appear in Enseña Peru, that is this NGO that have this mission that is promote this leadership movement for a transcendent education for all the students here in Peru. They have this vision like in 2032, 8 of 10 of Peruvian children and young people will receive an education of excellence. So basically, Enseña Peru have this objective is that children who live in rural areas have more quality for education, and how they try to do that, it's about these programs. All these programs have the same characteristics, same structures, and it's about one person, for example, a professional who study engineering or who study these careers, and they they contact and then they prepare for some skill of for education, and they send to these areas for teach for approximately 2 years, 1 year, 2 years, depends of the programs. So they try to have this quality of education for the children about these professionals. But we have some kind of obstacles in the project. It's like, for example, that the most important was the data architecture that this NGO have, because they don't have first area or a group that is specifically work in this work in data area. So how works this flow? First, for example, that the teachers that live in these rural areas, because they go to this, they complete these forms that Enseña Peru give them, then they back to this form to Enseña Peru. But all teachers have different forms, so when they come to Enseña Peru, they have a different forms, different data, different information for different schools, for different students. So Enseña Peru is more so Enseña Peru works in this for 3 months, 2 months, but they need take action about the scores of the students in the moment, but they have all this time. So we try to do is create this plan for organize all this data and all this information in just single repository. And for that was that Enseña Peru also have this plan for their own, and they contract a person for take this role for data management of all this flow for Enseña Peru, but this person have other responsibilities, so they really don't see or don't have own responsibility for data. But this person try to homologize or try to have just one form for all teachers, for all the schools. So that's helped a lot. And with this information, they or she do this dashboard for Enseña Peru. And for example, this is a example, or this is like how see this Power BI report for that she recovered for Enseña Peru. And they have all this information, and they have filters for example, cities, for level, for grades, courses. And that is other example for the dashboard. And then we try to automatize this dashboard with different indicators that they're really important for Enseña Peru. For example, we try to build a model for try to understand how different indicators, how different these variables affect the scores of the children. And so we try to first try to validate this hypothesis that Enseña Peru have. For example, this is some of list of indicators that they send us. For example, if the gender of students, or if teachers study engineering, teach better maths or some kind of like these courses, or if some teachers study more humanities careers and teach better arts or literature or something like that. Or like, for example, if students live in this rural area have better scores than if lives in urban area. So we try to understand, we just build this simple model, and we try to see if the impact of the coefficient have relevance or not with these indicators. And then we construct a dashboard alert for all these indicators. For example, we see in these like cities like Moquegua, who is really a rural area or is too far for the center of Peru or for the capital of Peru, don't have this impact in the scores of the student like Callao, that it's like a district for the capital. Also for example, people or a professional that study some education career have more impact in the scores, like for example, people who study economic science or communication science. So the achievement that we obtained was that first, like I mentioned, organize all this data, organize all this information that have a work about 8 months, something like that, because they don't have a person, they have the area for that. Before they, like I mentioned, they collect in own format for different teachers, but now they collect through Google Forms and they have a form or a defined structure. And yeah, so then we reduce the time for the process all this information, because they try to understand all this data, try to clean all this data, and have, well, they need a lot of time because they don't have just one structure. But we found this conjunctural problem, that first that the pandemic was one of them, because you know, like all these students have virtual class or virtual classes, but these rural areas have, or they are really poor. So for example, one teacher need to go to different homes for different students, but they only have 1 hour for students, and then in the other houses 1 hour for other students. So they so the NGO have more importance to try to solve these operational problems, that like try to do or try to understand the data, or try to construct the model with us. And the other was the political instability that generate really decreased investment from strategic partners. For example, Enseña Peru have a mining that invest a lot of money, but we have problems here in Peru. So this company retired this investment, and Enseña Peru try to focus their effort and their money in some other areas. So also other problem was the person who works for Enseña Peru. They don't have too much technical knowledge, so we don't have to, or we don't be able to construct a more complex model, because after the project finish, they or she need to do this maintain for the model. So we don't have this opportunity. And also, like I mentioned, Enseña Peru have all other responsibilities or all other things that they need to focus for the moment for try to solve, and that move all the schedule. So yeah, that is why that is the presentation. Maybe you have a question.
Okay, thank you, Joy. It's very interesting problem, and also I can see you have done a lot of work. You come up with the whole dashboard, the whole platform, and that will involve a lot of efforts, I guess. And also, I think your slides are very in a very good way. It's really like I mean, very big. Company or like Apple, like their, I mean, new conference or new publish event. I think it's very good. And about the contents, so I think you just said that you use the linear model to try to get the try to modeling the performance of learning about the different factors. So can you elaborate more about how is the performance you get from the model you choose, and also maybe how do you measure your the learning performance?
Yeah, yeah, the model was really simple. We have these indicators, and this variable that tried to analyze was the score for students. So just we run like just you see this OLS model. So, but
so you just measure the performance by the scores that the students get, right? And but all the students in the same program, or you?
No, for example, was we have
and also they should from different schools, right? Different universities or different schools, right?
Different grades also.
Yeah. Yes. So how just let's say the same grade, okay, but they come from the different region, different schools, and maybe in the different classes, right? The different teacher may give the different grades for different students. So maybe I guess you have done something to unify the unit or rescale all the scores, or do you think you need to consider that issue?
Yeah, that's really interesting. We try to conversate with the NGO for what I mean, how they see these indicators, because in the end they use all of this information. So for example, they mentioned that they use, or for them was important to analyze grade to grade for different schools that have really near one of other. But we don't have all this data information because, for example, they send us a database with some information, for example, for a school, but and for some grade, but don't have, for example, for other school in the same grade. So yeah, that was kind of problem. So try to just recognize if the score for these students in this school in this grade have impact for these indicators that they think that have impact in the scores. So we try to Enseña Peru, to this NGO, for example, okay, gender students don't have impact in the scores in these schools in this grade. So maybe you have other indicator that you try to analyze. Something like that was this kind of analysis.
Yeah. Oh, maybe you can consider, maybe you just model the improvement of the scores. I mean, if let's say in the last, I mean, half term, then by adding what kinds of control variable or what is the intervention you have imposed, then what is improvement on the score, and that may be, in that sense, you can even use the ratio, right? The percentage of the improvement, and in that sense, you can sometimes unify all the impact of different factor.
Yeah, for example, we try to like you say, track if the score of a student, for example, 2 months ago, this month, and this time of line. But in Enseña Peru have, well, I mean, well, I suppose that all these NGOs, all these schools here in Peru have this problem that, for example, 2019, before 2019, they have some format for qualification, but after this date, they have or they they complete these scores for, with other format. And also they don't have, for example, some indicate or some ID or some this key for track to students. So for example, we have scores for 2021, but they don't know if these same students, which was their note in 2020. So yeah, that's, for example, a problem that try to solve to track all these students, to try to create this database. So
yeah, I understand. Yeah, maybe that will increase the complexity of the whole procedure. And but I guess you still need to consider how to unify the score, the discrepancy of score from the different schools, or even the different classes, right? I mean, even in the same school, the different classes maybe have very different, I mean, score for the same student, because the different teacher will get the different score, right? I mean, I guess that will be an issue. And another suggestion is that you, in the future, if you want to, I mean, improve the, let's first say how is the accuracy of your model? Do you have some I mean, error results, error analysis?
Yeah, I don't have this this information here in these slides about the success of the model, of the precision of the model.
But but it just approximately just say how good is the model, or do you think the model is accurate enough for your usage?
Yeah, we tried, for example, to use this for accuracy. This, how was the value, but was really close to the results, because we try to see this information of this data and try to compare with other group of this data. So yeah, so for example, for the model, for the simple model, have a lot of precisions, but when we use just one indicator, because we try to combine, for example, two indicators, something like that, and then the model not have really good precision.
I also mean another, I mean, I also mean other models. Have you think of use other models to describe this relation? Because I mean, the linear model is, of course, it's the first most intuitive one, but in some case maybe it's not the best, right? So maybe you can also consider other kinds of models, like
yeah, maybe you have some suggestion for this kind of,
yeah, or
analysis.
even a neural network.
Yeah, we try to do that, but for example, like you can say, it's not also depends about us, also depends about the NGO, because they need to do this, maintain, they need to take action after we do that, so, do this. So yeah, they don't have, for example, this person that have this knowledge. So for example, they try to add other indicators, so they need to modify, for example, the model. So
yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, but yeah, it definitely it's an area that deserves to further study if in the future you have enough resource, right? I mean, because the linear model, you can also assume everything is just a linear dependence, but actually, I mean, a lot of I guess a lot of nonlinear reality should be involved in this procedure. Then maybe, I mean, like a kernel learning or neural network, that could be a good model to try. And I believe that will increase the accuracy a lot. So that just maybe one suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, for example, sorry, we have, for example, other, we have a comments for teachers for the scores for students. For example, if a student have bad notes, the teacher said or write this comment, for example, the student have problems in his home, in his house. And so we try to analyze these words, first try to found some patterns for some words like this sentiment analysis. But yeah, the time was so short for us, so we don't have enough time to analyze this comment. But
yeah, it's already a lot of work. I mean, I can imagine you start this whole platform, right? I mean, you start from scratch and to collect all the data from the different schools and convince people to join in, and there will be there already be a lot of work there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
yeah, that's amazing actually. Yeah, so maybe another thing I'm curious about is you mentioned that you also try to measure the status of the professional of the teacher, right?
yeah, we try to like, but in the same this linearity with correlation. If some for example,
I just curious, how do you measure the professional of a teacher? Oh, what is a good factor to measure that?
yeah, we have this relation with, for example, we categorize the profession of the teacher. If they study engineering, if they study education, if they study humanities careers, they do this relation with the scores of the students. Yeah, sorry for my dog.
No problem. Yeah, the pets. Maybe it's time for dinner.
Yeah, no, someone come to my house, so
okay, yeah,
start to bark. Yeah, so was something like that. For example, we have this like we categorize in these in these areas. We have education, social science, social communication, economic science, engineering. So we try to understand if the teacher or what the teacher's study have influence in the scores of her students, of their students.
So sorry, what's the number here? So each of the bar is corresponding to one major or one discipline, right?
Yeah.
And what's the number here?
Sorry, I don't understand what you mean.
So what's the number? So you have the bar, and on the top of each bar you have some numbers, right? So
okay. So what's
what are those numbers?
Number?
Yeah.
Is the influence that this career have in the score of their students in their scores?
You mean it's a parameter in your model, in your linear model. It's a coefficients.
Yeah.
Okay. So in some kinds of shows that they almost equally important in some sense.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Yeah, in some sense they are all very important factors.
Yes.
Okay, I see. Okay. Then which is a factor for the professional of the teachers?
Sorry?
What is a factor corresponding to the teacher's professionality?
Factor?
You mentioned that you also consider a factor of teachers' professionality, right?
Okay. I'm not sure if it's like was something like we try to measure if like how this teachers, and
So
we try to
just go back to the other factors you have considered.
this.
Yeah. Okay, it's not here, but okay, maybe, yeah. But in the report, you mentioned that you also consider how is the teacher professional on the teaching, and you include that the factor, but maybe here you don't include it in the end, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I see. Yeah. Let me see if I have other question. So, okay. So in the report, you also mentioned that you also want to control of these factors or these parameters to improve the teaching performance. So can you see a little bit how you control or how you do this feedback procedure?
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
Do you also intervene the teaching procedure by the model you have discovered?
Yeah, no, just all these indicators on all this was in the moment just theory. Don't have, for example, impact, like say that if teacher have, for example, like seeing in the data, for example, move from teacher from school to other school for try to change teachers to try to have better scores for students. All of this was just theory for the moment.
Okay, so in some cases you currently you mostly just have the modeling, but not really intervention a lot, right? Yeah. Okay, I see. But in the future, definitely, if you have a model, the next step is how to intervene to improve the learning performance. Right?
Yeah, we need more data for some.
Okay, okay. So data is also another, I mean, limitation in your study, right? So you hope to have more data in the future to really make it more efficient or make it effective. Okay, I see. So that's a question from me. So maybe other person can raise more question.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. My first question is, did you have the data for each of these people, or was there missing data, and how did you treat the missing data?
We have a lot of missing data because, for example, one problem is that, for example, we send this form from teacher, but teacher don't have internet. So, for example, they send this data 2 months later, 3 months later, or they, for example, have a limitation of time for internet. So they send just the most important scores for the most important courses, something like that. So we try to, in the beginning, ignore all this missing data for analyze. But we understand that we need to some, I don't know, method for complete this data because have a lot of these situations.
Yeah, that's a good point that you brought up, that if you're going to be able to collect a limited amount, like making sure that they're at least responding to the most important questions. Was that indicated by you guys, or was it just based on the answers perspective?
No, was based like for teachers, for their experience, for what they think is more important for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, the missing data can be very frustrating, especially if you already have a limited amount of data. Topics that you can try looking up, it's called data imputation. Like if something's missing, sometimes you could infer it from other similar data points, or if it's like a time series, which Can you remind me, were you guys able to test students' grades versus these indicators for just one instance, or do you have data over a series of time?
Yeah, for example, we try to have this data for this March to December, that is like this year's school year here in Peru. But we have, for example, all just data for June and July. So we try to do,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
But for example, yeah, in Senior Peru, or they have this mission to collect all this data for 2021 for try to complete the model, for try to have more data. But it's some kind of difficult in the moment because they have other problems, yeah, most operational problems, like teacher was sick, or maybe this teacher just get out of the program, something like that. So they need to find other teachers. And for
yeah,
for them it's more important like solve this problem that try to help us in construct the model or try to do other more complex model.
Yeah, about the more complex model, I don't mean to contradict you, but I do agree with you guys that like if you can keep it simple or keep it limited to a model that maybe more people are familiar with, I think there is a lot of strength in that, in terms of like both people being able to replicate your method, but also them being able to interpret it. Like the coefficients in a linear model are so easy to interpret. Other stuff that would be interesting to see is, so you placed all of the variables into one linear model, right?
Yeah.
I think one risk that occurs when you're doing something like that is you might not be able to catch orthogonality between the variables, or like the statistical significance indicated by the final outcome could be misleading. It might be helpful to test linear models with 2 or 3 of the variables, like smaller subsets of them, to see how the variables interact with each other. You also emphasize that you were trying to look at the interaction, like I guess you were multiplying the variables together and then doing a linear regression on that, which is a good way to look at that too, of like the interaction between variables. But you could also try, I think you are using R. The output looked very familiar.
Yeah, was Python.
Oh, it was Python? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think both of these languages also support doing like simple forward or backward selections on linear models. Did you try doing that?
Yeah, you see something like it's important for example, for the NGO, is like we try to analyze these indicators, for trying to, for example, don't found collinearity or something like that, because they have this knowledge for years, for try to do these programs or try to teach. This part is more exciting, for example, for them, if when we try to talk about what indicators, what we put in this model, something like that, they have more familiarity with us, more facilities for try to talk about this, more like, okay, try to collect the data in a very good way or something like that, because we understand that this is important for them. So yeah, so I think we have this impact or these recommendations for them that try to analyze in the best way these indicators for don't found problems that affect this simple model. So
yeah, let me think about it. I also had a few more questions, but I like that throughout the presentation you've also talked us through your reasoning for why you picked that model, and you've also communicated to us a lot of the setbacks in terms of like both the data selection and the model selection and like, yeah. Let me think about it. Yeah, I think you addressed all of the questions that arise in my head while I was listening to your presentation. So
Okay, thanks.
thank you so much for both presenting and taking our questions so graciously. This is a super cool project.
Thank you, Bensu. And thank you, Silan, for your you know, asking questions and your encouraging comments. Yeah, so I hope that, you know, our comments add to your reflections. Good job. I think your presentation has changed quite a bit since last time I saw it. And I think the project themselves have evolved quite a bit as well. So I hope you guys, you know, are proud that you are making impact in your community. And please keep up the good work. Okay, so yeah, thank you everyone. So I think we'll see you again maybe when in the graduation ceremony. I hope everything goes well until then.
Thank you, Karim. Thank you,
Thanks a
Sil.
lot.
Thank you, Bensu.
Thank you. Take care.
Night.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Congratulations, everybody.